Last Christmas, my son left me in a strange city with nothing but $10 in my pocket. That night, I learned the true meaning of being alone. But I also learned something else. Sometimes, the people you love the most can be the ones who hurt you the deepest. And here's the twist: today, that same son is asking to live in my house. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments, what would you do if your own child abandoned you like this? My name is Martha. I'm 62 years old, a retired high school English teacher, and for most of my life, I believed my greatest success was raising my only son, Daniel. After my husband passed away 20 years ago, I promised myself Daniel would never go without. I took extra tutoring jobs, graded papers until midnight, and skipped things I wanted so he could have the best: new shoes for sports, class trips abroad, the kind of education his father would have been proud of. I missed out on so many things, but I told myself it didn't matter. What mattered was him. So when he called me in early December last year with an idea, I was thrilled. "Mom," he said, his voice unusually warm, "how about we spend Christmas together in the city? See the lights, eat somewhere fancy, make a memory or two." My treat. I could almost feel my heart swell. We hadn't had a trip together in years, not since he moved out. I thought maybe this was his way of reconnecting. I didn't even think twice. I packed my warmest clothes, a little extra cash for souvenirs, and the red scarf my students had given me when I retired. The train ride was perfect, at first. Snowflakes tapped against the glass, the kind of soft, lazy snow that makes the world look like a snow globe. Daniel sat across from me, scrolling through his phone, occasionally showing me pictures of the city's Christmas market. I kept sneaking glances at him, thinking about how much he had grown. Broad shoulders now, a bit of stubble, the kind of man his father would have been proud of. I thought, maybe I did okay after all. When we arrived, the streets were alive with holiday cheer. Strings of golden lights hung between buildings, and shop windows glowed with red and green displays. A group of carolers sang on the corner, their voices floating above the sound of bells from a passing streetcar. Our first stop was a little cafe Daniel had read about online, famous for its peppermint hot chocolate. We sat by the window, watching children pull sleds behind them, their cheeks flushed from the cold. It was there, over the steam of our drinks, that I felt the first crack in the day. Daniel's phone buzzed, and he smiled in a way I hadn't seen in years. He typed quickly, almost forgetting I was there. "New girlfriend." I teased lightly. His smile faded. "It's just someone from work," he muttered, slipping the phone into his pocket. Something in his tone told me not to press, so I changed the subject. But there was a shift, small, almost invisible, but it was there. As the afternoon went on, I noticed other small things. He walked ahead of me without slowing down, glancing over his shoulder only when I called his name. When we stopped at a street vendor, I offered to buy him a roasted chestnut bag, and he just said, "I'm good," without even looking up from his phone. I told myself he was just distracted, maybe work stress, maybe something else. But in the pit of my stomach, I felt that familiar ache, the one I'd had in recent years whenever I realized how far apart we'd grown. It wasn't until we reached the hotel lobby that the tension sharpened. Daniel leaned on the counter while the receptionist searched for his reservation. When she asked, "Will it be one room or two?" he glanced at me and said, "Two, definitely two." I blinked, caught off guard. "Oh. I thought we were sharing a suite, like last time." He sighed. "I just need my own space, Mom. You understand." I nodded, but inside something stung. That night, over dinner, things unraveled further. I asked about his job, and he gave short, clipped answers. When I brought up the holidays we used to have when he was little, he smirked like they were distant, unimportant memories. I tried to push away the feeling that I was an obligation, not a guest he actually wanted there. And then the next morning, in the freezing air of the city, standing outside a shop window glittering with ornaments, the moment happened, the one that would change everything. But that is something I'll tell you in the next part. I woke up the next morning to the sound of church bells echoing through the city. For a moment, I forgot the tension from the day before. I pulled back the heavy hotel curtains, the streets below were dusted in fresh snow, and the morning light turned the rooftops into something out of a Christmas card. I thought maybe we could start fresh. Maybe we just needed a good breakfast and some time in the holiday markets to bring the warmth back between us. Daniel was already up, sitting on the edge of his bed, hunched over his phone. His jaw was tight, his thumb moving fast over the screen. "Morning," I said softly. "Morning," he muttered, eyes still glued to his phone. We walked to a nearby cafe that smelled of cinnamon and fresh bread. I tried to ask about his plans for the day, but his answers were short, distracted. Between bites of toast, his phone buzzed again, and I caught the flicker of irritation in his face. "Everything okay?" I asked. He sighed, setting his phone down. "It's nothing. Just a stupid fight with Emily." Emily. His girlfriend of 8 months. I didn't know her well, but I knew her family had money, the kind of money that made Daniel self-conscious about his own life. "She thinks I'm not serious about our future," he went on. "Her parents, well, they think I should be further along. They're not wrong." I reached for my tea. "Daniel, your worth isn't measured by their bank account." "Easy for you to say," he said quickly, his voice sharp. "You've got security. You've got that house." I didn't like the way he said that house. We left the cafe and wandered into the Christmas market. The air was crisp, alive with the smell of roasted chestnuts and pine garlands. I stopped to look at a little stall selling hand-carved ornaments, tiny angels, reindeer, sleighs. They reminded me of the ones I used to hang when Daniel was little. He stayed a few steps behind, hands in his coat pockets, eyes darting from stall to stall, but not at the goods. At the people. He was in his own head, calculating something. "Martha," he said finally, his voice carrying a strange weight. "I've been thinking about something. Actually, I've been planning to talk to you about it during this trip." I turned toward him. "What is it?" He hesitated, then spoke quickly, like if he got the words out fast enough, they wouldn't sound as bad. "I think we should sell Dad's house." My heart skipped a beat. "What?" "Listen," he said, holding up his hands. "You're living there alone. It's too big for one person. We could sell it, get you a nice, smaller place, something easier to maintain. And with the extra money, I could finally put real capital into my business." "Daniel," I could barely find my voice. "That house is not just a building. It's where your father and I built our life. It's where you grew up. Every room has a memory." He exhaled sharply. "Memories don't pay bills. And honestly, Mom, you holding on to it, it's not practical. Emily's parents think I'm not serious because I don't have enough invested in my future. This would change everything." I stared at him. "So this isn't about me downsizing for my own good. This is about you impressing them." His jaw tightened. "Why can't you just see the bigger picture? You'd still have a place to live, a better place probably. And I could finally." "No," I cut in. My voice surprised even me. "I'm not selling my home to make you look better to someone else's family. That house is my anchor, Daniel. I'm not letting it go." The market's cheerful sounds seemed to fade as we stood there, locked in a silent battle. Around us, people laughed, children tugged their parents toward candy stalls, couples sipped mulled wine. But between us, the air was ice. "You always do this," he said finally, his voice low but laced with anger. "You always put your feelings ahead of logic. Ahead of what's best for both of us." "What's best for both of us," I said, "is not selling the only piece of your father I have left." He shook his head, muttering something under his breath. Then, in one sudden motion, he reached into his coat, pulled out a crumpled bill, and pressed it into my hand. "Here," he said flatly. $10. Get yourself a coffee or something. I need to think." I blinked at him, stunned. "Daniel." But he was already walking away, his figure swallowed by the crowd. I stood there, the cold seeping through my gloves, my fingers clenched around that single bill. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts remained unread. The cheerful lights of the market blurred as tears filled my eyes. I wandered the streets until the cold bit so hard it hurt to breathe, then ducked into a tiny cafe. The cheapest tea they had was $3. I sat by the window, the warm cup between my hands, staring at the snow swirling outside. And in that moment, I made myself a promise. I would never again let anyone, not even my own son, leave me with nothing. I didn't sleep much that night. The little bed in the corner of the boarding house was clean and warm, but my mind wouldn't stop replaying the moment Daniel walked away. His back disappearing into the crowd. That crumpled bill in my hand. The way the snow had started falling harder, just as my chest felt like it was caving in. The kind owner of the boarding house had only charged me half the usual price. She'd seen the state I was in when I arrived, red eyes, trembling hands, clothes damp from the snow, and must have decided I didn't need more trouble than I already had. By morning, the city was quiet under a fresh layer of snow. I stood at the window, watching a man clear the steps of the bakery across the street. Everything felt foreign, the smells, the sounds, the way my breath turned into a little cloud in front of me as soon as I stepped outside. I had maybe $7 left after the night's stay. Not enough for a train ticket home. Not enough for much of anything. The boarding house owner had offered to let me stay another night if I needed, but I couldn't bear the thought of using up the last of my money and still being stuck here. I pulled my scarf tighter around my neck and started walking. I didn't know where I was going, just somewhere. Somewhere warmer. Somewhere that didn't feel like I was trapped in the middle of a bad dream. I passed the Christmas market again, the same one where Daniel and I had stood less than 24 hours earlier, arguing about the house, about my life, about his plans. My stomach turned just thinking about it. I turned down a side street, away from the crowds, and that's when I heard it. "Mrs. Palmer. Is that you?" I froze. That voice, I hadn't heard it in years. I turned and there he was, taller, broader, older, but those eyes. I knew them instantly. "Ethan," I said, barely believing it. Ethan was one of my students from my last years of teaching. Back then he'd been quiet, always sitting in the back row, but he had a talent for writing that I'd spotted early. He'd been going through a rough time at home, and I'd stayed after class more than once to help him with his college applications. He smiled wide. "I can't believe it's really you. What are you doing here?" I opened my mouth to answer, but nothing came out. I didn't know how to explain that my own son had left me in a strange city with nothing but a few dollars in my pocket. It's a long story," I managed. His smile faded a little as he studied my face. "You don't look okay. You're freezing. Come on, let's get you inside somewhere." We walked to a little coffee shop on the corner. Ethan bought me a tea and a croissant, insisting I eat something warm. When I finally told him what had happened, his expression hardened. "Mrs. Palmer, that's awful. I can't believe he'd do that to you." I shrugged, staring down at the steam rising from my cup. I suppose I should believe it, but part of me still can't. Ethan reached into his jacket and pulled out his wallet. "Listen, I owe you more than you know. You helped me get into college when no one else thought I could. I wouldn't have the job I have now without you. So please, let me do this." He slid a folded stack of bills across the table. "Ethan, I can't." "Yes, you can," he interrupted gently. "This is enough for a ticket home. And maybe something warm to eat on the way. Consider it a late Christmas present, from one of the many people whose life you changed." I felt my throat tighten. I hadn't cried since last night, but now the tears came. Quiet, hot, and unstoppable. "Thank you," I whispered. "You have no idea what this means to me." "I think I do," he said with a small smile. "And when you get home, make sure you take care of yourself. Don't let anyone, not even family, make you feel like you're less than you are." That afternoon, I walked into the train station with my ticket in hand. The platform was crowded, but I felt lighter, stronger. As the train pulled out of the city, I looked out at the snow-covered streets and made myself a silent promise. The next time Daniel sees me, I won't be the woman he left behind. I'll be someone who doesn't need him, or anyone, to survive. I didn't know then just how much that promise would change everything. The train pulled into my hometown just as the sun was setting, casting the streets in a soft orange glow. I stepped off with my small bag, the cold air biting at my cheeks. For the first time in days, I wasn't thinking about where I would sleep that night. I was going home. Walking through the quiet streets felt different than before. I noticed the crunch of snow under my boots, the smell of wood smoke from chimneys. My house, stood at the end of the lane, just as it always had. The sight of it sent a wave of relief through me. I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The air was cool but familiar, carrying the faint scent of lavender from the potpourri bowl I kept on the hallway table. The silence was heavy, but it didn't scare me. Not anymore. I left my bag by the stairs and wandered through the rooms. Every wall, every piece of furniture, held memories. The kitchen where Daniel used to sit and do his homework while I cooked dinner. The living room where we decorated the tree every Christmas. The hallway lined with photos, our family frozen in time, smiling at moments that felt like a lifetime ago. For a brief second, I imagined strangers walking through here, evaluating the place like real estate, judging the worth of my memories in dollars and cents. That's what Daniel wanted. A sharp ache cut through my chest. No, I whispered to myself. Not now. Not ever. The first week back was a quiet one. I cleaned the house from top to bottom, not because it needed it, but because the routine kept my mind steady. I scrubbed the kitchen counters until they gleamed, dusted the bookshelves, polished the old wooden banister. I tended to the garden out back, pulling up the last stubborn weeds, brushing snow off the rose bushes so they wouldn't break under the weight. It felt good to care for something that was mine, something no one could take from me. Ethan's kindness still lingered in my thoughts. Without him, I might have been stuck in that city for days, maybe longer. I decided I wouldn't waste the second chance he'd given me. I dug out my old laptop and signed up for an online freelancing platform. I'd always been good at editing. Decades of grading essays had trained me to spot every misplaced comma, every awkward sentence. I posted a simple profile, offering proofreading and copy editing services. To my surprise, I got my first job within a week, editing a short story collection for a young writer overseas. The pay wasn't much, but when I transferred that first $45 into my bank account, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time: pride. My days began to form a rhythm. Mornings in the garden or running errands, afternoons at my desk with a cup of tea, evenings reading or attending the local book club. I was meeting new people, rebuilding my life piece by piece. It took me a while to realize how much lighter I felt without the constant tension of Daniel's expectations. I wasn't waiting for his approval, or for the next request, or for the next subtle comment about how I should live my life. At first, his silence worried me. Weeks passed without a call or a text. I told myself he was busy, but deep down, I knew we were both avoiding the conversation we needed to have. By the second month, the worry had faded into something else: peace. I could breathe without bracing for the next argument. I could make decisions without running them through the filter of what Daniel might think. Then one evening in early spring, the phone rang. I glanced at the caller ID and froze. Daniel. For a long moment, I just stared at the screen. Part of me wanted to let it go to voicemail. But my hand moved on its own, picking up the receiver. Hello? There was a pause, then his voice, quieter than I remembered. Mom, it's me. I didn't answer right away. We need to talk, he said, his tone hesitant. What about? I asked, my voice steady. Another pause. I need your help. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with unspoken things. And in that moment I knew, the boy who had walked away from me in the snow was gone. The man on the other end of the line was someone who needed something more than just money. I didn't rush to call him back after that phone call. For 2 days, I let his words sit in the air like frost on a windowpane, visible, cold, and unmoving. I needed time to decide if I even wanted to hear what he had to say. On the third day, I sent a short message: if you want to talk, come here on Saturday at 2 p.m. Nothing more. No warmth. No love, Mom. Saturday came with gray skies and the kind of wind that makes the house creak. I had a fire going in the living room, not for him, but for myself. I made tea, the same way I always did, strong with a splash of milk. At exactly 2:07 p.m., I heard the crunch of tires on the driveway. I didn't get up right away. Let him knock. Let him feel what it's like to wait. When I finally opened the door, the man standing there barely resembled the son I had last seen in that crowded Christmas market. His hair was unkempt, his shirt wrinkled, and there was a hollowness in his eyes I hadn't seen before. Hi, Mom, he said, his voice low. Daniel. I stepped aside. Come in. He sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped so tightly his knuckles were white. I sat across from him, the coffee table between us like a border neither of us could cross just yet. For a long moment, he just stared at the floor. Finally, he spoke. I lost my job. I said nothing. I invested in something stupid. A friend's startup. It tanked. I put in everything I had, thinking it would turn around. He laughed once, without humor. It didn't. I still said nothing. Emily's gone, he added after a pause. Her parents, well, you can imagine. They told her I was a liability. I guess they were right. I leaned back in my chair, my eyes never leaving his face. So now you're here. He looked up, a flicker of shame in his expression. I don't have anywhere else to go. Interesting, I said slowly. Because last Christmas, you left me in a city I didn't know, with $10 in my pocket. No hotel key. No way to get home. And you never looked back. He winced. Mom, I was angry. I wasn't thinking. You were thinking, I interrupted, my voice firm. You were thinking about yourself. About what I could give you. About what I could sell to make your life easier. And when I said no, you decided I wasn't worth your time. That's not. Don't lie to me, Daniel. My tone was calm, but it cut through the room like a blade. I lived through that day. I remember every detail. And you will not rewrite it to make yourself feel better. He swallowed hard, his eyes dropping again. I'm sorry. I let the silence stretch. An apology is only as strong as the actions that follow it. I need your help, he said again, softer this time. I don't know what else to do. I folded my hands in my lap. Maybe you think that because I'm your mother, I'll open my door without hesitation. Maybe you think forgiveness is something you're entitled to. But Daniel, if you're going to stay here, even for a single night, it will be on my terms. His head lifted slightly, wary. What terms? I leaned forward, my voice steady. You're going to face what you did. You're going to hear, without interrupting, exactly what it meant for me to stand on that street alone. And you're going to understand that if you ever treat me like that again, there won't be a conversation afterward. There won't be another chance. He nodded slowly, like a man about to walk into a courtroom. Okay. Good, I said, standing. Because, Daniel, the rules have changed. And this time they're mine. His eyes followed me as I walked to the kitchen to refill my tea. I could feel the weight of what was coming pressing down on both of us. This wasn't just about giving him a place to stay. It was about rewriting the balance between us, once and for all. And deep down I knew. The real conversation hadn't even started yet. Daniel's first night back under my roof was quiet. Too quiet. I'd given him the guest room, not out of generosity, but because my rules were clear. This is not a permanent arrangement, and you will earn your place here. The next morning, I made coffee and found him still in bed at 9:30. I didn't knock gently. Daniel, this is not a hotel, I called through the door. Up. Now. There was a groan, a shuffle, and finally the sound of bare feet on the floorboards. Rule 1, contribute to the household. That meant helping with meals, cleaning, repairs, anything that needed doing. No excuses. Rule 2, find work within 2 weeks. I didn't care if it was part-time or full-time, glamorous or not. He had to start rebuilding his own life. Rule 3, no discussions about selling the house. Ever. The subject was closed. The first week was a test for both of us. He'd never been one for early mornings, so getting him to shovel the driveway before the frost melted took more than one reminder. Once, I came home from the market to find him on the couch, scrolling on his phone. Daniel, I said, my voice low, there's laundry in the washer that needs drying. You live here now, act like it. He rolled his eyes, but he got up. I pretended not to notice the muttered complaints under his breath. On the 10th day, he came into the kitchen holding a slip of paper. I got a job, he said, placing it on the table, a contract from a small local delivery company. The pay wasn't much, but it was steady. That's a start, I said simply. I didn't congratulate him like a mother proud of her little boy. He needed to stand on his own now, not lean on me for validation. One evening, about 3 weeks after he moved in, I found him sitting at the dining table long after dinner, staring at his hands. Mom, he said quietly. About last Christmas. I put my book down but didn't speak. I was wrong, he said. Not just for asking you to sell the house, but for the way I left you there. I keep replaying it in my head, you standing in the snow, me walking away. I don't know what I was thinking. I guess I wasn't thinking about you at all. I let the words hang in the air. This wasn't the half-hearted, deflective apology he'd given me before. This was different, heavier. I can't change what I did, he continued. But I can promise you it won't happen again. And I'll never bring up selling the house again. Ever. I studied his face, looking for signs of performance, but there were none. His shoulders were slumped, his eyes tired, but there was something steady in them. All right, I said finally. We'll see if your actions match your words. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted into muddy patches in the garden, and green shoots began to push through the soil. One Saturday morning, I was in the yard, kneeling in the flower bed, coaxing new life out of the earth. I heard the back door open and footsteps crunch on the gravel. Daniel appeared beside me, holding a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. What's this? I asked. Something I bought with my first paycheck, he said. Open it. Inside was a hand-carved wooden frame, and in it, a photo of the three of us, me, Daniel, and his father, taken in front of the house when Daniel was about 12. I felt a lump rise in my throat. It's beautiful. He shrugged, looking almost shy. Figured if the house is staying, we should have this somewhere we see it every day. I didn't say much. Just smiled, placed the frame on the porch table, and went back to my flowers. But inside, I knew something had shifted. He was still learning, still making up for what he'd done, but the boy who'd left me in the snow was starting to disappear. And I'd proven to myself that boundaries weren't just walls, they were doors I could choose to open or close. If you were in my place, would you have let him stay?